that I don't want Bryan Reynolds to be moved to first base. The management team is now finally and formally on the record that they do want Reynolds moved to first base. Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or hockey. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Hope you'll check those out as well. Day one of winter meetings was yesterday in Dallas. Our reporter, Jose Negron, was there on the scene. And as I'd expected, the Pirates haven't actually done anything, but they did have Ben Cherington and Derek Shelton available for questions, and as close as either of them came to making news was openly discussing Reynolds being at first. This was Shelton.
He's just started that. I mean, Donnie's putting a program in place for him to follow, and Donnie will follow back up with him. We'll go to Nashville and be able to do the work. Right now, it's just more rest. I mean, he played in 150-something games, and we need him to rest. He'll start his off-season program, but the idea is that we're going to see what it's like at first base, to see that he's going to play there full-time. I wouldn't say that. He's a good athlete. He likes taking ground balls. The initial stuff that he did, the initial work that he did at the beginning or at the end of the offseason, into the season was very positive. We'll kind of see how it goes, and then I'll see how the rest of our club plays out.
Now, he's the manager, and the other guy is the general manager, at least for the coming year. And as such, they're free to do as they please when it comes to the deployment of their own players. Just as all the rest of us are free to say what we want about that. And I've got a bunch that I want to say about that. To start, Reynolds is an outfielder. He's been an outfielder his entire life, so I'm not exactly expressing an opinion when I say that. He's not a great outfielder in terms of his speed, in terms of getting to breaks, but he's been a pretty good one. He's certainly been a diligent one, meaning he puts everything he has into his defense. I wouldn't describe that really as an opinion either. You just have to watch the games. A year ago, these same management people, the same two guys, asked Reynolds, their most important player, to invest his offseason into working on his arm strength. And he did that. And it came with significant effect. You saw that too. Also not an opinion. He was throwing guys out, and he was doing it with a rifle. So credit to him there, and by the way, credit to them for addressing a perceived shortcoming on his part and turning it into a strength. That's what good development, good instruction is supposed to do. That was a year ago. So now, and not really now actually, because there were hints of this even as far back as September, that he might get moved to first, and that tells me that they were already formulating some kind of plan toward 2025, which I'll presume they both had to do in part to try to save their jobs. Otherwise, there'd have been no discussion that would have contributed to Cherington stating publicly that he and Shelton will be, quote, accountable together, end quote, in 2025. And part of that plan, I'm sure, was to look around Major League Baseball, look at the potential free agency market, and say to themselves that there isn't really a first baseman that they could get or that they'd want to get at any sort of financial commitment or significant financial commitment. In parentheses, even though they've pretty much cleared out $40 million, I think, of space underneath what I believe is going to be $100 million as a payroll limit. Now, if there were players, real live outfielders, banging down the door for spots in this lineup, either young guys who were already with Pittsburgh, young guys who were in Indianapolis, even an old guy, that's all they could do was play the outfield. This might make some sense. If they did what the Orioles just did and they signed Tyler O'Neill for 3 years and $49.5 million, and you had a pretty good feeling that you're going to get 30-plus home runs and X amount of production, not to mention a Gold Glove. O'Neill's won 2 of those. Then you say, all right, well, then there's something to be done here. But none of that's the case. Not yet. And really, it's hard to envision it You look at free agency at either first base or right field, or left field as long as we're at it, you're not going to be overwhelmed by anything. So what that means, and this subject came up yesterday with Charrington, is do you trade young pitching? To which his response was, sure, we could do that. To which my response, to reiterate from a program last week, is, wow, no, I do not want them trading the Pirates' young pitching for hitting because they can't recognize hitting. They have no idea what it is that they're seeing when they look at hitting. So Reynolds just kind of falls into the, hey, dude, you want to do us a solid here and try a new position for the first time in your life since we don't know what we're doing. We don't know how to acquire hitters, and therefore we have none after 5 full years here. But would you at least be open to it in case we completely suck at it again through this offseason and can only come away with, I don't know, a couple of corner outfielders and then you have to move to first? Can you do that for us? And as such, you take the most productive bat that you have in your organization, number 1. In fact, Reynolds is number 1 by such a big margin that there isn't even a clear number 2, and you instead want to cloud his head with learning a new position. I can't. I just can't with these guys. I'm sorry. I just can't. When we come back, J1Q.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstoragecheck.org. That's gunstoragecheck.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
Abandon ship, Bob. Sell the team. Are you a Pirates fan who is angry or apathetic about our perennial losing baseball team? Do you feel helpless because you don't know how to make a difference? Well, good news. We have something you can do about it. Join our Sell the Team movement. We're a group of passionate fans voicing our frustration and demanding change through billboard campaigns, press outreach, protests, and involvement at local city government meetings. Go to OurTeamNotHis.com to get involved.
Today's J1Q comes from Christopher Thomas, who says, great, move Bryan Reynolds to first. What a creative idea. Then they're going to have a Gold Glove caliber third baseman in Jared Triolo, who they're going to play at first or second, a center fielder in O'Neal Cruz, who's played his whole career at short, and a first baseman who's played his whole career in the outfield. Love it. What could go wrong? Well, that's kind of part of what my complaint is here, Chris. They're asking the players to solve their problems. When I mentioned, I think this was a couple weeks ago, that they like to act like they're the Yankees, that got misunderstood, I could tell, by some people who responded to it. What do you mean by that? They don't spend like the Yankees. They don't behave that way at all. This was actually what I meant. They act like they've got everything so they can make decisions the way the teams that actually have everything make decisions. They look around, see other teams moving their guys around to try to work with their own shortcomings. Well, the problem with that, in addition to the obvious, is that they've dug so many holes over a half decade that they can't fill even a fraction of them in a single offseason. Yesterday, when Shelton was addressing how the team is going to improve offensively, because he himself brought it up as being their principal goal, we need to hit, we need to add hitting, and I'll at least give them credit for finally being forthright on that count after 5 years of not at all acknowledging that that was the problem. But when Shelton went into a discussion on it, and this was, by the way, what I'm referring to here was on MLB Network. So he's talking to an audience that he I'm sure correctly presumes doesn't follow the Pirates very closely, as opposed to talking to local reporters when you're not going to say obvious things like this guy can hit and that guy can hit. When it's MLB Network, you're going to lay out some names. And he did. He said, we have Bryan Reynolds. We have O'Neal Cruz. And then there was a little bit of a hesitation, and he brought up that Joey Bart looks like he can hit. And then he mentioned Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who Ben Cherington would later confirm in another setting is going to be the team's shortstop in 2025. Now, I'm sure neither of them mentioned Andrew McCutchen for the simple and fair reason that Kutch is a free agent. But those are the four that came up. That's it. Brian Hayes and his health would come up in a different circumstance. And I'll say it once more. That was it. If you think that the Pirates are going to whip up half, at least half, of a regular old everyday lineup in the 3 months between now and the trucks unloading in Bradenton, you're out of your mind. Okay? I say that respectfully. It won't happen, and it can't happen. And the reason for that is it's just too much. So what they have to do, in turn, is spread the money that they have over multiple positions, and that means waiting until later in free agency, or, worse by far, trading away legitimate young pitching with legitimate potential, neither of which had to happen if they weren't just so awful at either finding or teaching hitting in the first place. And I'm going to say it again, these are the same guys. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates. I'm going to do another one of these tomorrow.